The sound of $10,000 shattering against Italian marble echoed through the penthouse like a gunshot. Nathan Cole didn't flinch. He'd stopped flinching 3 plates ago. 42 years old, CEO of Vance Tech, a company worth $3 billion built from code and calculated risk. And he was on his knees in his own kitchen, picking up fragments of a January 1735 dinner plate, while his 10-year-old daughter stood on the floating glass staircase, face blank as fresh snow. Her voice carried no heat, which somehow made it worse. The accusation landed flat and final. The mashed potatoes tasted like cardboard. Mrs. Chen, the ninth nanny in 8 months, was already gathering her belongings in the staff quarters. Nathan could hear her muffled sobs through the walls. He'd write her a check for 2 months' severance, same as the others. Money was the only language he spoke fluently anymore, and even that couldn't buy him 5 minutes of peace in his own home. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, Manhattan spread out like a kingdom he'd conquered. The Empire State Building caught the late afternoon sun. Central Park stretched dark and green below, a rectangle of controlled wilderness surrounded by steel and glass. Out there, Nathan Cole was a legend. The garage startup that became an empire. The algorithm that revolutionized cloud infrastructure. Forbes cover 3 years running. In here, he couldn't get his daughter to eat dinner without a tactical operation that would make Navy SEALs nervous. Lily turned and walked up the stairs, her Catholic school uniform. Dalton, the new school, the one that hadn't expelled her yet, pristine despite the chaos she'd just created. Her footsteps made no sound on the glass treads. Nathan sometimes wondered if she practiced that, the way she moved through the penthouse like a ghost haunting a mansion she'd never wanted. He stood, dumping ceramic shards into the trash. The kitchen gleamed around him, all Sub-Zero appliances in Carrara marble, a space designed for entertaining that hadn't seen a dinner party in 2 years. Not since Rachel. The thought of his wife hit like it always did, sudden and sharp. Rachel Cole, concert pianist, Juilliard prodigy, the woman who could silence a room with a single note and fill it back up with something beautiful. Dark hair that caught light like silk. A smile that made even Monday mornings feel like grace. 2 years ago, she'd kissed him goodbye in this same kitchen, humming Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major while she poured coffee. She was heading to their estate in Westchester for a writing session. Lily was going with her, a rare mother-daughter Saturday. Nathan had stayed behind for a conference call with Tokyo investors, a decision he'd replay in his mind every single day since, wondering if his presence would have changed anything. The call from the stable manager came at 11:47 a.m. Rachel's horse, a gray Hanoverian named Galileo, had stumbled on a jump approach. She'd gone down hard. Broken neck, instantaneous, they said, as if that word could soften the blow. As if there was a gentle way to learn that your wife was gone and your daughter had watched it happen. The funeral was a blur of black umbrellas and pitying faces. Lily, 8 years old then, had stood beside him in a dress Rachel had bought her the month before, and she hadn't cried. Not once. Not at the service, not at the burial, not during the reception where 200 people told Nathan how sorry they were, how tragic it all was, how Rachel was too young, too talented, too beloved. Lily had simply stopped speaking. For 3 months, she was silent. Therapists came and went with their play, therapy, and art therapy, and every other kind of therapy that involved expensive degrees and gentle voices. Nothing worked. Then one day she started talking again, and Nathan realized the silence had been mercy. The girl who came back wasn't his daughter. She was something else, something sharp and cold and utterly unreachable. Nathan walked to his study, a corner office overlooking Fifth Avenue, where he'd closed deals worth hundreds of millions. Tonight it felt like a cage. He poured himself 2 fingers of Macallan 25, a bottle that cost more than most people's monthly rent, and it tasted like ash in his mouth. His phone buzzed. Marcus Singh, his CFO and the closest thing Nathan had to a best friend, didn't bother with pleasantries. The German deal closed. Contract signed an hour ago. $500 million. Nathan should have felt something. Victory, satisfaction, the rush that came with dominating a negotiation. Instead, he felt the same hollow emptiness that had taken up residence in his chest. Good. Tell the board I'll be at the meeting Thursday. You sound thrilled. Marcus knew him too well. 20 years of friendship bought that kind of clarity. What happened? Mrs. Chen quit. Lily accused her of psychological torture because she opened a window. Marcus exhaled slowly. Nathan could picture him in his Tribeca loft, probably standing on his balcony with a cigar, looking at the same city from a different angle. Nathan, you can't keep doing this. 9 nannies in 8 months. Eventually, you're going to run out of candidates. I know. Nathan drank, felt the burn, welcomed it. I have a meeting with James Sullivan tomorrow. He's the last placement specialist in the city who'll still take my calls. Sullivan from Harvard? That's Sullivan? Marcus paused, and Nathan heard the unspoken concern. James Sullivan ran the most exclusive domestic placement service on the East Coast. If he couldn't help, Nathan was out of options. What are you going to do if he says no? That was the question, wasn't it? The one Nathan had been avoiding for months. His sister Victoria had an answer. Boarding school in Connecticut, intensive therapeutic programs, essentially sending Lily away until she turned 18 and the trust fund kicked in. The thought made Nathan's stomach turn, but he was running out of alternatives. He ended the call and stood at the window, watching the city lights flicker on as dusk settled over Manhattan. Somewhere out there, people were living normal lives. Families were having dinner without plates shattering. Fathers knew how to talk to their daughters. The world functioned according to rules Nathan had somehow forgotten. The next morning, he sat across from James Sullivan in an office that smelled like old money and older wood. Sullivan was 60, silver-haired, with the kind of patrician bearing that came from generations of Yale legacies. They'd known each other at Harvard Business School, back when Nathan was building his first startup in a Cambridge apartment, and Sullivan was heading toward family business. Sullivan's office occupied a townhouse on East 73rd Street, all mahogany paneling and leather furniture. Framed photos lined the walls. Sullivan with senators, with tech titans, with Saudi princes. His client list read like a Forbes 400 directory. He poured Nathan coffee from a silver service that probably cost more than a car. I heard about Mrs. Chen. She was one of our best. Nathan accepted the cup, noting how Sullivan's hand trembled slightly. The man was nervous, which was never a good sign. She lasted longer than most. Nathan, Sullivan set down his own cup with careful precision. We've known each other a long time. I was there when you pitched your first algorithm to investors who thought you were entering. I watched you build an empire, so I'm going to be direct. I can't help you anymore. The words landed with the weight of a verdict. Nathan had expected this, but hearing it still felt like a door slamming shut. James, your daughter isn't a bad kid. She's brilliant, probably smarter than both of us combined. Sullivan pulled out a file, Nathan's file, thick with reports and incident summaries. But she's also traumatized, angry, and she's using that intelligence as a weapon. 3 nannies quit within 2 weeks. Number 4 accused Lily of gaslighting. Claimed the girl was systematically making her doubt reality. Numbers 5, 6, and 7 all needed therapy after working in your home. The behavioral psychologist you hired? One actually cried during our debrief. Nathan's jaw tightened. Hearing the litany of failures laid out like evidence made something twist in his chest. So that's it? You're giving up on her? I'm giving up on finding someone who can survive her. Sullivan's voice softened. This isn't about nannies or therapists or prestigious schools. Pembroke expelled her for creating an elaborate prank that shut down their entire security system. Dalton called me last week. They're considering suspension because Lily submitted a paper about the philosophical justifications for social contract dissolution that the headmaster found deeply concerning. She's 10 years old, Nathan said, though he wasn't sure if he was defending his daughter or marveling at her capacity for chaos. She's a genius in pain. Sullivan closed the file. And pain like that doesn't respond to professional credentials or therapeutic techniques. Those people come in with their degrees and their methods, and Lily dismantles them like she's debugging code. Because that's what she's learned from watching you, Nathan. She's learned that if you're smart enough, you can control everything. The observation hit harder than Nathan expected. He saw Lily in a new light, not as some inexplicable monster, but as his daughter, his and Rachel's, trying to impose order on a world that had stolen her mother. She was using the tools she had, the ones she'd learned growing up watching her father turn algorithms into empires. Sullivan stood, walking to the window. Outside, nannies push strollers along the tree-lined street. Normal children on normal days. If I can offer advice from someone who cares about you both, she doesn't need another professional. She needs something else. What? Nathan heard the desperation in his own voice and hated it. Magic? A miracle? Maybe. Sullivan turned back, and his expression held something that might have been pity or might have been understanding. Someone who sees her as a person, not a problem to solve. Someone she can't predict or manipulate because they're not following the script. Someone who has nothing to lose. Nathan drove back to his office at Vance Tech, Sullivan's words echoing in his mind. The building rose 40 stories above the Flatiron District, all glass and steel, with Nathan's name etched in the lobby. His company occupied floors 30 through 40, a vertical empire of server rooms and developer pods and conference rooms where he'd reshaped entire industries. His assistant Emily had his afternoon schedule printed and waiting. 3 meetings, 2 calls with West Coast investors, a strategy session about the new AI division. Nathan looked at the itinerary and felt nothing. Once, this had been everything. The chess game of business, the thrill of outthinking competitors, building something from nothing. Now it felt like he was sleepwalking through someone else's life. He canceled everything and sat in his office, staring at the same park he could see from his penthouse, wondering when he'd stop being able to distinguish between the two locations. Work and home had blurred into one continuous state of controlled crisis, both requiring the same skills: delegation, decision-making, maintaining the illusion of authority. But authority meant nothing with Lily. She saw through it, saw through him, saw the terrified man pretending he knew what he was doing. His phone buzzed with a text from Victoria, his sister, the woman who'd appointed herself Lily's savior. Need to talk, coming by tonight at 7. Nathan's relationship with Victoria was complicated in the way that sibling relationships often are when money and control intersect. She was 3 years older, sharper in some ways, and she'd never forgiven him for being the one their father chose to mentor in business. When Rachel died, Victoria had swooped in with pause and programs and therapeutic interventions, all delivered with the confidence of someone who'd never actually raised a child but had read extensively about it. She arrived at exactly 7, led in by the building's security. Victoria Cole didn't wait for invitations. She appeared in Nathan's study wearing Prada and purpose, her blonde hair cut in a severe bob that matched her personality. She didn't sit. She never sat, preferring to pace like a lawyer delivering a closing argument. Mrs. Chen called me. She's considering legal action for emotional distress. I'll handle it. Nathan remained behind his desk, the same position he took in boardroom negotiations. Some habits were hard to break. You'll throw money at it, you mean? Same way you've thrown money at every problem since Rachel died. Victoria's voice had an edge that could cut glass. When are you going to accept that this isn't working? What do you want me to be, Victoria? That I'm failing as a father? I know. I'm living it every day. She stopped pacing, and for a moment, her expression softened. They'd been close once, before success and grief had driven wedges between them. I have a solution: the Pembroke Institute in Connecticut. It's a residential therapeutic community for gifted children dealing with trauma. Top-tier psychologists, structured environment, full academic program. They have an opening. You want me to send my daughter away? Nathan's hands gripped the armrests of his chair hard enough to hurt. She just lost her mother. Now you want her to lose her father too? She lost you already, Nathan. You're here physically, but you're not present. You're so consumed with guilt and work that you can't see what's happening. Lily is getting worse, not better. She needs professional help in an environment designed for kids like her. Kids like her. Nathan stood, rage suddenly hot in his chest. She's not a diagnosis, Victoria. She's my daughter. A daughter you can't reach. A daughter who's running through caregivers like they're disposable. A daughter who's going to end up isolated and broken because you're too proud to admit you need help. Victoria pulled out a folder, setting it on his desk. This is the paperwork. Just read it. That's all I'm asking. She left before Nathan could respond, her heels clicking on the marble floors like a countdown. Nathan looked at the folder but didn't open it. Instead, he walked to Lily's floor, standing outside her closed door. Light spilled from underneath, and he could hear music, Chopin, the same nocturne Rachel used to hum, playing softly through her speakers. He raised his hand to knock, but something stopped him. What would he say? How did he bridge the canyon that had opened between them? Every conversation felt like navigating a minefield, one wrong word away from explosion. Nathan lowered his hand and walked away, hating himself for the cowardice. Tuesday brought rain and a desperation that felt like drowning. Nathan had been awake for 40 hours, closing the German deal, managing a server crisis in the Singapore office, and trying to draft an email to Dalton's headmaster explaining why Lily's paper on social contract theory wasn't actually a manifesto. The words wouldn't come. Nothing came except exhaustion and the growing certainty that Sullivan was right. He was out of options. At 6 p.m., he made a decision born from sleep deprivation and something that might have been hope. He found Lily in her room, surrounded by textbooks and coding manuals that would challenge most college students. "We're going out for dinner." She looked up, suspicion immediate. "Why?" "Because I want to." The words felt foreign in his mouth. When was the last time he'd simply wanted to spend time with his daughter, rather than enduring another supervised meal in their mausoleum of a home? "I'm not hungry." "Come anyway." Nathan surprised himself with the firmness. "Please." Something in his tone must have registered because Lily closed her laptop. Victory felt hollow when it required begging your own child for her time. The Cornerstone Bistro sat just far enough from Fifth Avenue to avoid the tourists and close enough to Midtown to catch the after-work crowd. Nathan had chosen it deliberately, a place heavy with memory. This was where he brought Rachel on their first date 15 years ago, back when he was hustling to get venture capital and she was performing at Carnegie Hall for the first time. They'd shared a bottle of cheap wine and talked until closing, her hand in his across a table that wobbled. The bistro hadn't changed much. Same exposed brick, same mismatched furniture, same quiet dignity of a place that survived by knowing its regulars. Nathan spotted their usual table in the corner booth, the one where he and Rachel had celebrated their engagement, where they'd told each other about the pregnancy, where they'd planned a future that was supposed to include decades, not just 10 years. The hostess recognized him, sympathy flickering across her face before she smoothed it away. People always recognize grief, even when you tried to hide it. She seated them without comment. Lily sat across from Nathan, her Catholic school uniform perfect, her face an expressionless mask. She didn't look at him, she didn't look at the menu, she looked at nothing, which was her particular gift, the ability to be present and absent simultaneously. Their waitress approached, and Nathan felt something shift in the air, a change so subtle he almost missed it. She was young, early 20s, with dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, and an efficiency of movement that spoke of long shifts and hard work. Her uniform, black jeans, white blouse, simple apron, was worn but clean, no jewelry except a small silver cross at her throat. What caught Nathan's attention wasn't her appearance, but the way she moved. She scanned the room with the precision of a security detail, her eyes tracking the businessman at the bar, whose hand trembled slightly. The young mother in the corner, struggling with a fussy toddler. The elderly couple by the window who hadn't touched their meals. She was reading the room, assessing needs before they were spoken, just like Rachel used to do. Rachel, who could walk into a concert hall and know which section would cough during the quiet passages, who could sense a wrong note before it was played. The waitress reached their table, and her eyes landed on Lily with that same assessing quality. Nathan saw calculation there, not judgment. She was trying to solve a puzzle, which meant she recognized that Lily was one. Her voice carried a queen's accent softened by education, probably college, probably recent. "Evening, folks. Can I start you with something to drink?" Nathan ordered coffee. Black, same as always. The waitress turned to Lily, patient and unhurried despite the busy room. And that's when his daughter launched her opening salvo. Lily's voice was clear, precise, designed to wound. "This booth is damp." Nathan closed his eyes, feeling the familiar pattern begin. Here it came. The explosion, the apologies, the hasty exit. Another memory of Rachel tainted by his inability to control his own daughter. But the waitress didn't react the way everyone else did. No fluster, no nervous glance at the manager, No quick assurances that she'd fix it immediately. She simply looked at the booth, then back at Lily, expression neutral. Okay, would you like to move to a different table? No. Lily shifted gears, frustrated by the lack of panic. The light is buzzing. It's giving me a headache. Nathan listened for the buzz. There wasn't one. The waitress listened too, head tilted slightly, then met Lily's eyes with something that might have been understanding. I don't hear it, but that doesn't mean it's not bothering you. Would you like to sit somewhere without overhead lighting? No. Lily's frustration was mounting, a tide rising. This water tastes like metal. Are you trying to poison me? The waitress looked at the water glass she'd just filled from a pitcher. It's New York tap water, so technically, we're all being slowly poisoned. But that's more of a chronic infrastructure issue than an immediate threat. She paused, and Nathan saw a flicker of something in her expression. Not amusement, not irritation, just engagement. I can bring you bottled water if you prefer. We have Perrier, San Pellegrino, or Fiji. Your choice. Nathan watched his daughter recalibrate. This wasn't going according to script. The waitress wasn't scared or defensive. She was treating Lily's complaints as legitimate concerns requiring practical solutions. Lily tried a different approach, ordering a grilled cheese with specifications that would make a Michelin-starred chef weep. 9-grain bread, young Gruyere specifically, crusts removed, cut into squares, not triangles, and it absolutely could not be even slightly brown. The list went on for 30 seconds, each requirement more absurd than the last. The waitress wrote it all down without comment. When Lily finished, she reviewed her notes, lips moving slightly as she double-checked. 9-grain young Gruyere, crusts off, squares, no browning, got it. She looked at Nathan, and in her eyes he saw something he hadn't seen in months, calm certainty. And for you, sir? Nathan felt like he was watching a masterclass in something he couldn't name. Just black coffee. The waitress nodded and walked away, and Nathan noticed she didn't rush. She moved with purpose, but no panic, stopping to refill the businessman's drink, to bring extra napkins to the mother with the toddler, to check on the elderly couple. She was doing her job with a competence that seemed almost meditative. Lily stared after her, confusion replacing the predatory focus. For the first time in months, Nathan saw his daughter unsure, and he realized what Sullivan had meant. This waitress wasn't following the script because she didn't know there was one. She had nothing to lose, no professional reputation to protect, no fear of a billionaire's wrath. She was just a woman doing her job, treating a difficult customer with straightforward pragmatism. 10 minutes later, she returned with Nathan's coffee and a plate bearing Lily's sandwich. It was perfect. 4 pale yellow squares of sandwich, cut with geometric precision, on 9-grain bread that showed no hint of browning. Nathan recognized the care that had gone into this, the attention to absurd detail that most people would have dismissed as impossible. Lily inspected the sandwich with forensic intensity. She picked up one square, turned it over, sniffed it, examined the edges. Nathan held his breath, waiting for the verdict, knowing it would be negative because the verdict was always negative. Then Lily's arm swept across the table in one violent motion. The plate, the sandwich, her full water glass, everything crashed to the floor in an explosion of ceramic and liquid. The bistro went silent, every head turned. Lily's voice was ice. It was brown. Nathan felt something inside him collapse. He slumped in his seat, head falling into his hands. The defeat was total, absolute. He'd brought her here to this place that mattered, and she'd destroyed it. Another memory ruined, another bridge burned. I'm sorry, he whispered to the floor, to the waitress, to Rachel's ghost. I'm so sorry. The manager emerged from the kitchen, face thunderous, but the waitress raised one hand and the man stopped cold. Nathan looked up, wondering what kind of authority this young woman had that her gesture could halt a manager mid-storm. She knelt beside the mess, pulling napkins from a nearby station. But she didn't start cleaning the obvious destruction. Instead, she picked up a single wet crust of bread, examining it with the same focus Lily had used. She held it up, turning it in the light, and Nathan saw what he'd missed. One edge was darker than the others, barely perceptible, but there. The waitress looked at Lily, and her voice carried through the silent room with perfect clarity. You're right, this side is a little darker than the other. My mistake. I should have checked. Nathan's head snapped up. Lily's jaw actually dropped. Of all the possible reactions, screaming, crying, threats, eviction, simple factual agreement was the one thing no one had ever tried. Validation without judgment, acknowledgement without surrender. But the waitress wasn't done. She remained kneeling, bringing herself to Lily's eye level, which Nathan realized was a deliberate choice. I have a question, though. That throw, was that a 10 or just like a 7.5? The plate got good distance, but the water splash was messy, not very contained. Nathan's mind stuttered. Was she critiquing his daughter's tantrum like a gymnastics routine? The waitress continued, still holding the burnt crust. I'm just saying, if you're going to make a scene, it should be epic. That was okay, but a little derivative. Table flip trope. You're clearly smart. I bet you could come up with something more original. Something impossible happened. A smile flickered across Lily's face, tiny and quickly suppressed. But there, Nathan saw it. His daughter had smiled. Then Lily's armor snapped back into place. Shut up! The waitress stood, brushing off her knees, and began cleaning the mess with practiced efficiency. I'm serious. All that energy for what? A wet floor? Lame? Now, are you still hungry, or was that just performance art? Because if it's art, I respect the commitment. But you'll have to sit there while your dad drinks his coffee, which, by the way, is getting cold. She cleaned without rushing, without apology, without coddling. She brought Nathan fresh coffee and Lily a new glass of water. Then she went back to her other tables, leaving them to navigate the aftermath alone. For the first time in 2 years, Lily was silent. Not the weaponized silence of refusal, but genuine speechlessness. She didn't complain about the light or the booth or the water. She simply sat, watching the waitress move through the room, her expression pure confusion. Nathan drank his coffee. It was perfect, strong and hot, and he felt something he hadn't felt in months. Hope. Not the desperate kind that came from denial, but real hope based on observable evidence. Someone had just done the impossible. Someone had reached his daughter. He paid the bill, including a generous tip for the broken plate, and stood. As they walked to the door, Lily looked back over her shoulder. Her eyes found the waitress across the room. The waitress met her gaze and gave a small, non-committal shrug. No triumph, no judgment, just acknowledgement. Lily didn't smile again, but she didn't scowl either. She just looked, really looked, at another human being for the first time since Rachel died. In the car driving home, Nathan's mind raced. That waitress had done in 15 minutes what 9 nannies and 3 psychologists had failed to do in 8 months. She'd made Lily pause, made her think, made her react as something other than a defensive weapon. The question was how, and more importantly, could it be replicated? His phone was in his hand before conscious decision. Emily, I need you to find someone for me. Maya Torres, works at the Cornerstone Bistro. Full background check. Everything legal. Education, employment history, family. I need it in 1 hour. Emily didn't question. She'd worked for Nathan long enough to know that when he used that tone, mountains moved. Yes, sir. Is this for a position at Vance? No, this is personal. He ended the call and stared out at the city passing by. Beside him, Lily was quiet, staring at her hands folded in her lap. Nathan recognized the posture. She was thinking, processing, trying to categorize what had just happened. Good. Let her be unsettled. Unsettled meant engaged. And engagement was the first step toward connection. At the penthouse, Lily went straight to her room without comment. Nathan stood in the foyer, listening to her footsteps fade, and felt the familiar weight of isolation settle over him. This was his life now, silence punctuated by explosions, distance measured in feet and miles simultaneously, a family of 2 who couldn't occupy the same emotional space. Emily's report came through at exactly the 1-hour mark. Nathan read it on his tablet, standing by the windows overlooking Central Park. The file painted a picture of struggle and determination. Maya Elena Torres, 23 years old, born in Queens to Miguel Torres, a construction worker who developed lung cancer from asbestos exposure, and Carmen Torres, who'd left the family when Maya was 12. No siblings, attended Hunter College on partial scholarship, Graduated 2 weeks ago with a psychology degree and a 3.4 GPA. Student loan debt of $127,000. Currently working two jobs, full-time at the bistro, weekend shifts at a coffee shop in Astoria. Shared an apartment with two roommates. Credit score of 620 due to medical bills from her father's treatment. No criminal record, no red flags. The photo attached showed a young woman with serious eyes and a determined set to her jaw. She looked tired but unbroken, the kind of tired that came from choosing the hard road and walking it anyway. Nathan made two calls. The first was to Marcus. "I need you to tell me I'm not insane." Marcus sighed the sigh of a man who'd had this conversation before. "What did you do?" "I'm going to offer a 23-year-old waitress $400,000 a year to work with Lily." Silence stretched for 3 seconds. "You're insane, but I've been telling you that for a year, and you never listen. What makes this girl different?" She made Lily smile. Another pause, longer this time. Marcus understood what that meant, the weight of it. "Then hire her. But Nathan, have a backup plan. This could go sideways fast." The second call was harder. Nathan dialed the bistro, got the manager, explained who he was and what he wanted. The manager, a man named Dave who sounded perpetually exhausted, agreed to pass along a message to Maya. Nathan gave his personal number and a time frame. 1 hour. Then he waited. Waiting was an unfamiliar position for Nathan Cole. Usually he was the one making people wait, asserting dominance through strategic delay. But tonight he sat in his study with an untouched glass of scotch, watching his phone like it held the answer to everything. When it rang 30 minutes later, he answered before the second ring. "Miss Torres?" "This is Maya." Her voice was cautious, professional. "Dave said you wanted to speak with me?" "I need to meet with you, tonight if possible. I can send a car." "Mr. Cole, if this is about the plate, I already told my manager I'd cover the cost. It was just a plate." "It's not about the plate. It's about my daughter." Nathan heard his own voice crack slightly on the last word. "Please, 1 hour of your time. That's all I'm asking." Another pause. Nathan could almost hear her thinking, weighing options, calculating risks. Finally, she spoke. "Where and when?" He gave her his office address and penthouse details. Protocol said to meet at the office, neutral ground, professional setting. But something told Nathan this conversation needed to happen in his home, where the stakes were visible, where Lily's silent room and Rachel's locked music studio and the cavernous dining table told the story his words couldn't. 60 minutes later, the doorman called up. "A Miss Torres for you, Mr. Cole." Nathan buzzed her up, straightening his tie despite wearing casual clothes. The elevator opened directly into the penthouse foyer, and Maya Torres stepped out looking simultaneously out of place and completely self-possessed. She clutched a worn messenger bag and wore the same jeans and blouse from the restaurant. No attempt to dress up or impress. Nathan respected that more than he'd expected. She was taking in the space, the soaring ceilings, the artwork, the view, but not with envy or awe, with assessment. Nathan gestured toward his study. "Thank you for coming." She followed him, and he noticed she walked quietly, like someone accustomed to not disturbing others. The study felt smaller with her in it, or maybe Nathan just felt larger, more exposed. He didn't offer drinks or small talk. Time for that later, if there was a later. "Miss Torres, I'm going to be direct because I respect your time and intelligence. What I saw tonight at your restaurant, no one has ever managed that with my daughter. You didn't placate her, didn't yell at her, and you didn't break. You did something I haven't seen in 2 years." Maya's expression remained neutral, but Nathan saw her mind working behind dark eyes. "I was just doing my job, Mr. Cole." "No, you were doing something else. You saw her. Not as a problem or a diagnosis or a paycheck. You saw a smart kid making bad choices, and you called her on it without cruelty. That's a rare skill." He stood, walking to the window because sitting felt wrong for this conversation. Manhattan glittered below, indifferent to individual suffering, and Nathan felt the weight of every failure pressing down. "My wife Rachel died 2 years ago in a riding accident. Lily was there, she watched it happen. Since then, my daughter has gone through 9 nannies, 3 behavioral therapists, and 2 elite schools. She's brilliant and broken, and I can't reach her." I've tried everything money and connections can buy, and all of it has failed. Maya listened without interrupting, which Nathan added to the growing list of things he appreciated about her. Most people couldn't stand silence, felt compelled to fill it with platitudes or advice. She just waited, letting his words settle. I want to hire you, Miss Torres, not as a nanny or a tutor, as a companion, someone to spend time with Lily. Do what you did tonight, whatever that was. $400,000 a year, plus full tuition for any graduate program you want to pursue. Any university, Columbia, Yale, Stanford. Your choice. He watched her face for reaction. Shock flickered there, quickly suppressed, followed by suspicion and calculation. Good. She wasn't impulsive or easily dazzled. Mr. Cole, I'm a waitress. I just graduated with a bachelor's degree. I'm not qualified to work with a traumatized child. The qualified people all failed. They came with credentials and methods, and Lily demolished them. You know why? Because they were afraid. Afraid of her, afraid of me, afraid of failing. You weren't afraid at that restaurant. You were just present. Nathan turned from the window, meeting her eyes. She looked at you without contempt. That's the first time in 2 years that's happened. Maya's throat worked as she swallowed. Nathan recognized the signs. She was weighing impossible options, trying to navigate a situation her life experience hadn't prepared her for. Mr. Cole, Nathan, please. Nathan. She tested the name, clearly uncomfortable with the informality. I appreciate the offer, but I can't. I have my jobs, responsibilities. My father is sick, and I'm helping with his medical bills. This is too much too fast. I don't know anything about your world. That's exactly why you're perfect for this. Nathan heard the desperation creeping into his voice and didn't care. You have nothing to lose. The others wanted to keep their positions, maintain their reputations, impress me. You don't want my money. I didn't say that. Maya's lips quirked slightly. 400,000 is an insane amount of money. Of course I want it, but I can't take a job I'm not qualified for, no matter how much it pays. That's not who I am. Nathan respected the integrity even as it threatened to derail everything. He played his final card. What if I told you Lily needs someone exactly like you? Someone who sees her as a person, not a project. Someone who has survived hard things and come out stronger. Someone who understands that sometimes the most qualified person for a job is the one who doesn't have all the answers. Before Maya could respond, a voice cut through the air like a blade. Nathan, you cannot be serious. Victoria Cole emerged from the connecting office and Nathan's jaw tightened. He'd forgotten his sister had a key, access codes, the ability to materialize wherever control needed to be asserted. She looked at Maya with undisguised disdain. Prada suit, Hermes bag, blonde bob, sharp enough to cut. Everything about Victoria screamed expensive, controlled, superior. This is a child, Nathan, not a stray dog you pick up off the street. Maya's posture stiffened, but she didn't retreat. Nathan saw her make a choice in real time, saw her spine straighten and chin lift. Victoria, this doesn't concern you. Lily is my niece. It absolutely concerns me. Victoria moved closer, circling Maya like a lawyer with a hostile witness. You're a waitress. What precisely can you offer my niece? Better grilled cheese recipes? Nathan started to intervene, but Maya spoke first, her voice shaking but clear. You're right, Miss Cole. I'm not qualified. I don't have degrees from fancy schools, and I know nothing about your world. But I also don't have anything to lose. Those other people, the ones with credentials, they wanted to keep their bonds, impress your brother, maintain their professional reputations. They were afraid. She turned to Nathan and he saw steel beneath the nerves. I don't want your money. I mean, I do. It's life-changing money. But that can't be why I take this job. If I do this, I need conditions. Victoria scoffed, but Nathan held up a hand, silencing his sister. What conditions? Maya took a breath, gathering courage. First, I'm not a nanny. I won't be treated like staff. I'm not here to fix your daughter or control her. I'm just here to be with her as a person. Agreed. Second, Maya looked at Victoria. She stays away from me and Lily. Your concern isn't helping. It's making things worse. Victoria's face flushed red. How dare you? Victoria. Nathan's voice carried the weight of boardroom authority. Leave it now. His sister stared at him, calculation visible behind her fury. Finally, she grabbed her bag and strode toward the elevator. Before the doors closed, she delivered her parting shot. You'll regret this, Nathan. You're putting your daughter in the hands of an amateur. It's reckless. The penthouse felt quieter after she left, but the tension remained. Maya looked shaken but unbroken. Nathan found himself admiring her courage, the way she'd stood up to Victoria's intimidation. Third condition, Maya continued. You have to be involved. I'm not a replacement parent. If I call, you come. If I say you need to be at dinner, you're there. No board meetings, no excuses. Your money can't buy you out of being a father. The words hit Nathan like a physical blow. No one had spoken to him like that in years, maybe ever. The truth of it, the absolute correctness of the observation, left him momentarily speechless. She was right. He'd been using work as an escape, letting Vance Tech consume him because building empires was easier than facing his daughter's pain. Nathan Cole, who negotiated billion-dollar deals without flinching, who stared down corporate raiders and hostile boards, felt something crack open in his chest. When can you start? Maya needed 2 weeks to extract herself from her old life. Nathan gave her $3 and a $50,000 signing bonus that appeared in her account the next morning, accompanied by a salary advance that cleared her father's medical debt and paid 6 months ahead on her rent. The money felt unreal, abstract, the kind of sum that existed in other people's stories. Her father Miguel sat in his recliner at the Queen's nursing facility when she told him, oxygen tube in his nose, hands weathered from 40 years of construction work. His eyes went wet. Mija, you're going to save that little girl. Maya wasn't certain about that. She'd spent the past 14 days researching childhood trauma, reading everything she could find about grief responses in children, attachment theory, behavioral patterns following parental loss. The more she learned, the less qualified she felt. But something her psychology professor had said during her final semester kept echoing. Sometimes the person who helps isn't the expert. It's the person who shows up and stays. Her roommates threw her a goodbye party in their cramped Astoria apartment, equal parts celebration and disbelief. Sarah, who worked as a paralegal, kept refilling Maya's wine glass. 400,000. I still can't process that number. What are you going to do when this goes sideways? Hope it doesn't. Maya drank, feeling the weight of the question. She'd asked herself the same thing approximately 700 times. That little girl sounds terrifying. This from Jen, who taught elementary school and had seen her share of difficult children. 9 nannies, 3 therapists. You sure you're ready for that? Maya thought about Lily's face in the restaurant, that flicker of smile before the armor snapped back into place. A child so smart, she'd weaponized her intelligence. So hurt, she'd built walls no one could scale. No, but I don't think ready is the point. The first Saturday of her new employment, Maya stood in the penthouse foyer at 2 in the afternoon, holding a paper bag that smelled like butter and grilled cheese. The space around her was intimidating in its pristine emptiness. Marble floors that reflected light like still water, floating staircase that defied physics, artwork that probably cost more than her college education. Everything whispered money so old it didn't need to shout. Nathan had given her a security code and told her to arrive before Lily returned from her riding lesson. The symbolism wasn't lost on Maya, riding, the activity that had killed Rachel Cole. Nathan, keeping his daughter engaged with the thing that had destroyed their family, felt either incredibly brave or dangerously avoidant. She heard the elevator, then footsteps. Lily emerged in riding clothes, tan breeches, tall boots, navy jacket, looking like she'd stepped from an equestrian magazine. When she saw Maya, her entire body went still. You. Maya held up the paper bag, keeping her voice level. Me. Brought you grilled cheese. 9-grain, young Gruyere, crusts off, squares, not too brown. Lily's eyes narrowed with suspicion, sharp enough to draw blood. I'm not hungry. Okay. Maya sat on the uncomfortable modern bench Nathan had warned her about, extracted one of the sandwiches, and took a bite. The bread was perfect. The cheese melted to exactly the right consistency. She'd spent an embarrassing amount of time getting it right. Lily stood frozen, clearly expecting a different response. Maya could see the calculations happening behind those intelligent eyes. The girl trying to slot the situation into a familiar pattern and failing. You're not supposed to eat here. Where am I supposed to eat? Kitchen, with the staff. Lily's voice carried the automatic authority of someone who'd grown up giving orders. Maya swallowed another bite, considering. Your father hired me as a companion, not staff. Besides, this bench is objectively terrible. Feels like sitting on a geometry problem, but it's here. Want some? No, I have homework. Lily spun with military precision and marched up the floating stairs, boots clicking against glass in a rhythm that sounded like retreat. Okay, I'll be down here. Maya's voice carried up the stairwell, but she didn't move to follow. Let the girl have space. Pushing now would activate defense mechanisms that might take weeks to dismantle. For 3 hours, Maya occupied the foyer. She finished her psychology textbook chapter on attachment disorders. The irony wasn't lost on her. She worked through a crossword puzzle from the Times, getting stuck on 14 across until she realized the answer was hidden in the clue's grammar. She watched the light change through the massive windows, Manhattan transforming from afternoon gold to evening blue. The head housekeeper, Maria, appeared around 5:30. 50s, kind-faced, marked by years of service, eyes that had seen things she wouldn't discuss. She brought Maya tea without being asked, the gesture small but significant. Be careful with Miss Lily, and especially with Miss Victoria. Maya accepted the cup, noting the warning. Victoria comes by often? Twice a week, always when Mr. Nathan is at the office. She goes through things. Maria glanced toward the upper floors, voice dropping. I'm not supposed to notice, but I do. And Miss Lily, she's not what people think. She's not mean, she's scared. The observation aligned with Maya's own assessment. Fear often manifested as aggression, especially in children who'd learned that vulnerability meant pain. How long have you worked here? 15 years. I knew Miss Rachel. Maria's eyes went soft with memory. She was magic, that woman. Could walk into a room and make it warm just by being there. Miss Lily, she has her mother's gift for music. Did you know? Maya shook her head, filing the information away. Music as connection, as language when words failed. She made a mental note to explore that angle. At 6:30, a chef Maya hadn't met announced dinner. The dining room was exactly as Nathan had described. Cavernous, capable of seating 30, currently set for 3. Nathan sat at one end, Maya in the middle, Lily at the opposite end. The distance between them felt metaphorical. The meal was pan-seared salmon with asparagus and fingerling potatoes. Restaurant-quality food that probably cost more per plate than Maya used to spend on groceries for a week. She ate methodically, aware of being observed from both ends of the table. Nathan attempted conversation, his discomfort visible. How was school today? Fine. Lily didn't look up from her plate. Any interesting classes? No. The exchange had the rhythm of a script performed too many times, each word worn smooth by repetition. Maya watched Nathan's shoulders sag incrementally with each non-answer. Watched Lily's jaw tighten with something that might have been guilt or might have been satisfaction. Maya broke the pattern. Could you pass the salt? The salt shaker sat approximately 20 feet away, closer to Lily. The girl looked at it, then at Maya, calculation visible. No. Okay. Maya stood, walked the length of the table, retrieved the salt, and returned to her seat. Neither acknowledged the absurdity of the exchange. Nathan's expression shifted, something like interest replacing resignation. He was seeing the strategy, Maya refusing to be baited, treating Lily's provocations as minor inconveniences rather than relationship-ending crises. Maya sprinkled salt on her asparagus and tried a different approach. So, Dalton, what's the deal with that place? Better or worse than Pembroke? Lily's fork paused halfway to her mouth. Boring. Boring how? Like curriculum boring or people boring? Everything. Teachers are stupid. Students are stupid. Everyone's stupid. The words came out automatic, a shield worn smooth from constant use. Maya nodded slowly, keeping her tone conversational. Must be lonely being the only smart person in the building. Something flickered across Lily's face, too quick to name. Her fork clattered against the plate. You're stupid too. Probably. I barely passed statistics. That class destroyed me. Maya took another bite, let the admission hang in the air. But I'm pretty good at spotting liars, and you're lying right now. Lily's head snapped up, eyes wide with surprise that she couldn't quite hide. I'm not lying. You are. You don't think they're stupid. You think there's something else. Threatening maybe, or unpredictable. But stupid is a great word for keeping people at a distance. It's a wall made of contempt, and walls keep you safe. Maya met Lily's gaze across the canyon of mahogany. The question is, what are you so afraid of? Lily stood abruptly, napkin falling to the floor. I'm done. She walked out, posture rigid with fury or fear or both. Nathan stared at Maya, something like awe competing with a concern. That was too much maybe, but she needs to know I'm going to tell the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. Maya set down her fork, appetite gone. She's been surrounded by people who either fear her or pity her. Neither of those helps. Nathan's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. You said she's afraid. Of what? Of being seen. Really seen. Because if people see her, actually understand her, they might realize she blames herself for her mother's death. And if that's true, then maybe everyone else is right to keep their distance. Maya looked at the empty doorway where Lily had vanished. That's my working theory anyway. The words landed like stones in still water. Nathan's face went pale, understanding and horror mingling. She was 8 years old. The accident wasn't her fault. Has anyone told her that? Specifically, clearly, while addressing whatever she thinks she did wrong? Maya watched realization dawn in Nathan's expression. Or did everyone just say it was an accident and expect an 8-year-old to process complex grief without filling in the blanks herself? Nathan stood, walked to the window overlooking Central Park. The city sprawled below, lights beginning to pierce the dusk. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of 2 years' worth of failure. We never talked about it, not really. The therapist tried, but Lily shut down. I thought if we didn't discuss it, the pain would fade. That time would heal things. Time doesn't heal. It just gives you distance from the wound. But if you never clean the wound, it festers. Maya joined him at the window, keeping space between them. Tomorrow I want to try something. No promises, no guarantees, but I need you to trust me. I hired you because I trust you. Nathan turned, and in the fading light, Maya saw the man beneath the billionaire, exhausted, desperate, willing to believe in miracles because logic had failed him. What do you need? Your schedule cleared from 4 to 8 p.m. and permission to take Lily somewhere. He nodded without hesitation, which told Maya everything she needed to know about how far Nathan had fallen into desperation. A man who'd built empires on calculated risk was now gambling his daughter's well-being on a 23-year-old with a psychology degree in intuition. The weight of that trust felt heavier than the money. Sunday afternoon, Maya knocked on Lily's door. I'm going to Central Park. You can come if you want. No pressure. Silence answered her. Maya waited 30 seconds, then walked away. She made it to the elevator before she heard footsteps. Lily appeared, dressed in jeans and a hoodie that probably cost more than Maya's entire wardrobe. I'm only coming because I'm bored. Fair enough. They rode the elevator in silence, walked through the marble lobby where the doorman nodded respectfully, emerged onto Central Park West where spring sunshine turned the city golden. Maya headed toward the park entrance at 81st Street, Lily trailing 3 steps behind like a suspicious cat. The park was alive with Sunday crowds. Joggers, families, tourists, dogs pulling their owners towards Sheep Meadow. Maya wove through them with practiced ease, her years in Queens teaching her how to navigate crowds without losing her center. She found a bench near the Alice in Wonderland statue, sat, and waited. Lily remained standing, arms crossed. Why are we here? Because I like this statue. Alice looks brave and confused at the same time, which feels relatable. Maya patted the bench beside her, and also, your mom used to bring you here. Your father told me. Lily's entire body went rigid. He had no right to tell you that. Probably not, but he did because he's desperate and doesn't know how to help you, so he's hoping I can. Maya looked up at Alice, forever frozen in bronze, forever about to fall down the rabbit hole. Do you remember coming here with her? No. The lie was obvious, contradicted by the way Lily's hands clenched into fists. Okay. Maya didn't push. just sat in the sunlight, watching children climb over the mushroom sculptures. Minutes passed, marked by the distant sound of street performers and car horns. She'd learned in her psychology training that silence could be a tool, that sometimes people needed space to decide whether to trust you. Lily sat down, keeping maximum distance on the bench. She used to play a game. We'd pick a person walking by, and she'd make up a story about their life, like that guy. Lily pointed to a man in a business suit talking urgently on his phone. She'd say something like, "He's a spy pretending to be an accountant, but really he's tracking an international art thief." Maya smiled. "That's a good game. What would you say about him?" "That he's arguing with his wife because he forgot their anniversary again, and she's threatening to leave him, but she won't because she's scared of being alone." Lily's voice went flat. "Well, everything is a game." The shift from memory to bitterness happened so fast Maya almost missed it. She filed away the observation, Lily moving from softness to defense whenever emotion threatened to break through. "You're right. Some things are real and painful and not fixable with stories." "Is that why you're here? To fix me with psychology tricks?" Lily's eyes held challenge and hope in equal measure, which Maya suspected was the most honest thing the girl had shown anyone in months. "I'm here because your father loves you and doesn't know how to reach you. And because I saw something in you at that restaurant. You're not broken, Lily. You're smart enough to protect yourself, and that protection has turned into a prison." Maya shifted to face the girl directly. "Here's what I think happened, Erlen. Your mom died in front of you, and you decided it was somehow your fault. So you started pushing everyone away before they could leave too. But here's the thing about walls. They keep people out, but they also keep you trapped inside." Lily's breathing had gone shallow, rapid. "You don't know anything about me." "You're right, I don't. But I know what it's like to build walls. My mom left when I was 12. Just didn't come home one day. My dad was working 2 jobs trying to keep us afloat, and I was so angry I could barely see straight. I broke things, started fights at school, wanted everyone to hurt like I hurt." Maya watched a mother push a stroller past, the baby's laughter bright against the spring air. "I had this neighbor, Mrs. Petrov, old Russian lady who smelled like mothballs and made terrible pierogies. She didn't try to fix me or therapy me or tell me everything would be okay. She just sat with me, taught me chess. And every time I'd make a stupid move, sacrifice a piece for no reason, ignore my opponent's strategy, she'd look at me and say, 'That is very loud move, but not smart move. Find smart move.'" Lily was listening now, really listening, her defenses momentarily lowered. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means anger is loud, breaking plates is loud, pushing people away is loud. But those are reactions, not strategies. The smart move is figuring out what you actually need and finding a way to ask for it." Maya pulled out her phone, opened the Notes app where she'd written something the night before. "Your Aunt Victoria, she's making loud moves too, trying to control your father by making him think he's phoning, trying to control you by keeping you isolated. But you're smarter than her. So what's the smart move?" "I don't know." Lily's voice cracked on the last word, the first genuine vulnerability Maya had heard from her. "I don't know how to stop being angry. I don't know how to be normal again. I don't even remember what normal feels like." Maya's chest tightened with recognition. This was the wound, finally visible. Normal is overrated. And you don't have to stop being angry. Anger is information. It tells you something's wrong. But you can choose what you do with it. You can throw plates, or you can use that brilliant brain of yours to actually solve the problem. "What problem? My mom is dead. That doesn't get solved." Tears were forming now, bright against Lily's pale face, and she swiped at them furiously. "The problem is you think her death was your fault, and you think your father blames you, and you've spent 2 years proving to the world that you're exactly as terrible as you believe yourself to be." Maya kept her voice gentle but unflinching. "And I'm betting someone told you that. Someone planted that idea in your head when you were vulnerable and grieving." Lily's face went white. "How did you—" "Because that's what predators do. They find the wound and pour poison in it. Maya thought about Victoria's appearance that night at the penthouse, the way she'd circled and struck. Who told you that your father blamed you? The question hung between them, heavy with implication. Lily's mouth opened, closed, opened again. At the funeral, Aunt Victoria said, she said Dad's heart was broken and he'd never forgive me for what I did. Maya's hands clenched so hard her nails bit into her palms. Victoria Cole was more than controlling. She was actively sabotaging her niece's healing, keeping the wound fresh and infected. The question was why? What did you do, Lily? What do you think you did that needs forgiving? The girl's breathing had turned ragged, hitching on suppressed sobs. The morning before the accident, Mom wanted me to practice piano. She had this piece she wanted me to learn, said it was important, but I didn't want to. I wanted to play video games. We fought about it. Lily's voice dropped to barely a whisper. I told her I hated her, that she cared more about stupid music than about me. She looked so sad, but she didn't yell. She just said, we'll talk about this later, and then she went to the stables. And she never came back. The confession hung in the spring air, mixing with the sound of children playing and the distant wail of sirens. Maya felt the weight of it, the way a 10-year-old's ordinary childhood anger had been twisted into something monstrous by tragedy and manipulation. Lily, look at me. Maya waited until the girl's red-rimmed eyes met hers. Kids say I hate you to their parents approximately 1,000 times. It doesn't mean anything except I'm frustrated right now, or I don't like this rule, or I'm 10 and bad at expressing complex emotions. Your mother knew that. Parents know that. You did not cause her death. But if I'd just practiced, if I'd been better, she wouldn't have been upset when she went riding. Horses are 1,000-pound animals with minds of their own. Accidents happen in riding regardless of the rider's mood. Your mother was an experienced equestrian. She made a choice to attempt a difficult jump. That choice, that moment, had nothing to do with an argument about piano practice. Maya reached out slowly, giving Lily time to pull away. When she didn't, Maya took her hand. Your Aunt Victoria lied to you. She told you that your father blamed you because she wanted you to feel guilty. She wanted to drive a wedge between you two, and I need to figure out why. But that's a different conversation. Lily was crying openly now, 2 years of suppressed grief finally breaching the dam. Dad won't even talk about her. He locked her music room. He acts like she never existed. If he doesn't blame me, why won't he say her name? Because he's drowning in his own grief, and he thinks if he doesn't look at the water, he won't drown. He's wrong, but he's trying to survive the only way he knows how. Maya squeezed the girl's hand. Your father is a coward about some things, Lily. He's brilliant at business and terrible at emotions. But he doesn't blame you. He blames himself for not being there, for choosing a conference call over his family, for not protecting you both from a random accident that no one could have prevented. How do you know that? Lily's voice was small, childlike in a way Maya hadn't heard before. Because I talked to him. Because I see how he looks at you, like you're the only good thing left in his world, and he's terrified of losing you too. Because he hired me, a completely unqualified waitress, on the slim hope that I might be able to reach you when everyone else failed. Maya pulled out a tissue from her pocket, handed it over. He loves you. He's just forgotten how to show it in a way that doesn't involve money or distance. They sat in silence for a long time, watching the park move around them. Lily cried until the tears ran dry, until her breathing steadied, until the weight she'd been carrying lightened by fractions. Maya didn't offer platitudes or promises. She just sat, present and solid, the way Mrs. Petrov had once sat with her. Finally, Lily spoke, voice raw. What do I do now? Now we go home. And tomorrow you and I are going to have a conversation with your father. A real one where everyone tells the truth. Maya stood, stretched. But tonight we order pizza and watch something mindless on TV because processing trauma is exhausting. And sometimes you need to just exist without thinking. Lily managed a small smile, fragile but genuine. I don't think I've had pizza in 2 years. Dad thinks it's not nutritious enough. Your dad can eat his quinoa and kale. We're having pepperoni. Maya started walking back toward the penthouse, Lily falling into step beside her. Not 3 steps behind anymore, beside which felt like progress measured in inches that meant miles. They ordered from a place in the village, eating straight from the box while watching a nature documentary about penguins. Lily sat on the floor, back against the couch, grease on her fingers and something like contentment on her face. Maya watched the girl more than the screen, seeing the child emerge from beneath the armor. Nathan came home around 9, finding them surrounded by pizza boxes and arguing about whether penguins would survive in Central Park if someone released them. His expression cycled through surprise, relief, and something that might have been jealousy. I see you two had dinner. Pizza solves many problems. Maya stood, stretching. We need to talk. The three of us, tomorrow night if possible. Nathan's businessman instincts activated immediately. What happened? Is something wrong? Nothing's wrong. Something's actually right for the first time in a while. But we need to have a conversation that's 2 years overdue. Maya glanced at Lily, who was pretending to focus on the television. Be here at 6. Clear your schedule from 6 to whenever. This is non-negotiable. She left them then, heading to her guest suite on the second floor. The room was larger than her entire Astoria apartment, decorated in neutrals that suggested money, but not personality. Maya lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the day's conversations. She'd opened a door. Now she had to make sure it didn't slam shut again. Monday night, Nathan arrived home at exactly 6 p.m., which Maya suspected was the first time he'd honored a non-business commitment in months. He found them in the living room, not the formal dining room with its canyon of mahogany, but the smaller, more intimate space that overlooked the park. Lily sat on the sofa, posture defensive but present. Maya stood by the window, having positioned herself as neither mediator nor referee, just witness. Nathan looked between them, jacket already removed, tie loosened. What's this about? It's about the fact that you and your daughter haven't had a real conversation in 2 years. It's about lies Victoria told at the funeral. It's about guilt and grief and walls built so high nobody can scale them. Maya met his eyes. And it's about you being a father instead of a CEO for the next hour. Nathan's jaw tightened, but he sat down across from Lily. To his credit, he didn't argue or deflect. Okay, I'm listening. Lily's hands twisted in her lap, fingers nodding and unnodding. I need to tell you something. About the day Mom died. Nathan went very still, the kind of stillness that preceded either fight or flight. Lily, you don't have to. Yes, I do. The girl's voice was stronger than Maya expected. That morning, Mom and I fought. She wanted me to practice piano, and I didn't want to. I told her I hated her. I said she cared more about music than about me. And then she went riding and she died, and I thought it was my fault, that I killed her by being angry. The color drained from Nathan's face. Lily, no. God, no. The accident. It was an accident. Random. Terrible, but not your fault. Aunt Victoria said you'd never forgive me. She said I broke your heart, and that's why you won't talk about Mom, or look at her pictures, or say her name. Tears were streaming down Lily's face now, but she kept talking. She said if I'd been a better daughter, Mom would still be alive. Nathan made a sound like something inside him had torn. He crossed the space between them in 2 strides, pulling Lily into his arms. Victoria lied. She lied to you, sweetheart. I have never, not for 1 second, blamed you for your mother's death. Never. But you locked her music room. You won't talk about her. You act like she never existed. Lily's voice was muffled against his shoulder, but the pain in it was crystal clear. Because I'm a coward. Nathan's voice broke on the word. Because looking at her things, hearing her music, saying her name, it hurt so much I thought I'd die from it. I thought if I could just push through, just focus on work and moving forward, the pain would fade. I thought I was protecting you by not forcing you to remember. But I was wrong. I was so wrong. He pulled back, holding Lily at arm's length so he could look at her. Your mother loved you more than anything in this world. Music was important to her, but you were everything. In that argument, kids and parents argue. It's normal. It doesn't mean anything except you were 10 and testing boundaries. She knew that. She wasn't upset when she went riding. She was probably already planning what to make you for lunch, how to get you to practice without it feeling like punishment. You don't know that. Lily's voice was small, wanting to believe but afraid to hope. I do, actually, because your mother and I talked every day, multiple times. And you know what she told me that morning? Nathan's eyes were wet, but he kept his voice steady. She called me at the office right before she headed to the stables. She said, "Lily's testing me today, which means she feels safe enough to push. That's good. That's healthy. I'll take her for ice cream after her lesson this afternoon and we'll be fine." She wasn't angry, sweetheart. She was being a parent. The revelation landed like light breaking through clouds. Lily sagged against her father, and Nathan held her while they both cried. 2 years of grief finally acknowledged, finally shared instead of endured in parallel isolation. Maya backed toward the door, giving them privacy. This moment belonged to them. But Nathan's voice stopped her. "Maya, don't go. Please." She paused, uncertain, but Lily looked up and nodded. So Maya returned to her position by the window, bearing witness to the healing she'd helped catalyze. When the tears finally subsided, Nathan spoke with the careful precision of someone choosing each word like it mattered. "I need to show you something. Both of you." He led them to the second floor, to the door that had remained locked for 2 years. His hands shook slightly as he produced a key from his pocket. "I've been carrying this every day. Couldn't make myself use it. But you're right, locking away her memory didn't protect us. It just made us forget how to remember her together." The music room was exactly as Rachel had left it. Dust covered everything: the furniture, the framed photographs, the competition trophies. But the Bosendorfer grand piano gleamed under its protective cover. Late evening light slanted through the windows, turning dust motes into floating gold. Photographs lined the walls. Rachel at Carnegie Hall, mid-performance, face transcendent with concentration. Rachel and Nathan on their wedding day, laughing in the rain. Rachel pregnant, one hand on her swollen belly, smiling at something beyond the camera's frame. And dozens of Rachel and Lily at piano recitals, at the park, baking in the kitchen, reading together on a couch. A whole life preserved in amber. Lily walked to the piano, lifted the cover with reverent care. Her fingers touched the keys without pressing down, as if the instrument might shatter under her touch. "I've been coming in here. At night, when everyone's asleep, I found Mom's spare key in her jewelry box." Nathan's face cycled through surprise, understanding, then something close to pride. "You've been practicing." I wanted to talk to her. This was the only way I knew how. Lily's voice was barely audible. "I thought if I could play perfectly, if I could be what she wanted, maybe I could make up for everything." Lily, she didn't want perfection. She wanted you. Nathan sat on the piano bench, and after a moment's hesitation, Lily joined him. They sat side by side, father and daughter reunited in the one place Rachel's presence still lingered. "Your mother used to say that music wasn't about getting every note right. It was about making people feel something real." "She said that?" Lily leaned slightly into her father's shoulder, a gesture so small and significant that Maya felt her throat tighten. "All the time. Usually right after I'd listen to her practice and point out a mistake. She'd laugh at me and say, 'Nathan, you hear the error. I feel the music. That's the difference between code and art.'" He put an arm around Lily. "She would be so proud of you, not because you play well, but because you kept going even when everything hurt." They sat in silence, surrounded by Rachel's memory. Finally, Nathan spoke. "Maya, you asked me to be present, to be a father instead of a CEO. I've been failing at that for 2 years. But I want to change. Tell me how. Tell me what I need to do." Maya moved closer, careful not to intrude on their moment. "You need to talk. About Rachel, about the accident, about everything you've both been holding inside. And you need to let Lily see you grieve. She thinks she's alone in this pain, but she's not. You're both drowning separately when you could be helping each other float." I don't know how to talk about losing her without falling apart. Nathan's admission was raw, unguarded in a way that probably terrified him. "Then fall apart. Show Lily that grief doesn't mean weakness. Show her that you can break and still put yourself back together." Maya looked at them both. "And you need to deal with Victoria, because whatever she's doing, whatever reason she had for poisoning Lily against you, it's not over." Nathan's expression hardened. "What do you mean?" I mean, your sister has been coming to this penthouse twice a week when you're at work, going through things, watching, waiting, positioning herself as the only person who can save Lily. Mommy Maya had pieced this together from conversations with Maria and observations about Victoria's behavior. She's got legal authority as executor of Rachel's trust until Lily turns 18. That gives her power, and people who have power rarely relinquish it voluntarily. You think she's trying to gain custody? Nathan's voice went cold, businessman reasserting control. I think she's creating conditions that make you look incompetent. 9 failed nannies, behavioral problems at school, a father too consumed with work to parent effectively. If she wanted to petition for guardianship, she'd have a strong case. Maya hated saying it, hated the fear that bloomed across Nathan's face. But that's speculation. What's fact is that she lied to a traumatized 8-year-old about her father's feelings. That's calculated cruelty, and people don't do that without motivation. Nathan stood, pacing to the window. Rachel's trust is worth $8 million, growing annually. Victoria manages it until Lily's 18th birthday, which gives her access to a significant amount of money and 8 years of control. Maya let the implication hang. You're saying my sister is embezzling from my daughter. Nathan's voice could have cut steel. I'm saying we should probably look at the trust's financial records, and that you should revoke her access to this penthouse and to Lily. Maya met his gaze. I know she's your sister, but Lily's well-being comes first. The weight of that truth settled over the room like snow. Nathan looked at his daughter, who was watching him with something fragile that might have been trust, beginning to rebuild. You're right, Lily's safety comes first. Always. He pulled out his phone, made 2 calls. The first was to his head of security, instructing him to change all penthouse access codes and revoke Victoria's entry privileges immediately. The second was to his lawyer, requesting a full audit of Rachel's trust fund and Victoria's management of it. When he hung up, his hands were shaking. If she's been stealing from Lily, from Rachel's memory, then we'll deal with it, but not tonight. Maya gestured to the piano. Tonight, you two are going to stay in this room and remember Rachel together. Share stories. Look at pictures. Let this place be what it was meant to be, a celebration of her life, not a tomb. Nathan nodded slowly. Will you stay? I'm not good at this, at talking about feelings. I might need a referee. You don't need a referee. You need to be a dad. But yes, I'll stay if Lily wants me to. Maya looked at the girl, giving her the choice. Lily considered, then nodded. Stay, please. So Maya sat in a corner armchair while Nathan and Lily went through photo albums, telling stories Maya had no context for, but that clearly mattered. Nathan's voice cracked when he talked about Rachel's proposal. She'd asked him, not the other way around, interrupting a board meeting to tell him they were going to spend their lives together whether he liked it or not. Lily laughed, really laughed, telling him about the time Rachel had tried to teach her to bake, and they'd accidentally created something that looked like a science experiment gone wrong. Hours passed, marked by shared memories and tears that came easier with each story. Around midnight, Lily fell asleep on the couch, exhausted by emotional honesty. Nathan carried her to her room, and when he returned, his face showed the strain of a man who'd just run a marathon. Thank you. The words were inadequate, and he seemed to know it. I don't know how you did that, how you got us to this place, but thank you. I didn't do it. You two did. I just opened the door. Maya stood, suddenly aware of her own exhaustion. But Nathan, this is just the beginning. The hard work is staying here, staying present, even when it hurts. Even when work calls or Victoria pushes back, or Lily tests whether you're really going to show up this time. I'll show up. The promise sounded like a vow. Whatever it takes. Maya believed him, which felt like its own small miracle. She headed toward her room, but Nathan's voice stopped her at the door. Maya, I need you to understand something. If Victoria has been manipulating Lily, using Rachel's death for her own purposes, that's unforgivable. But if you're wrong, if we go after my sister and destroy our family relationship over speculation, then I take full responsibility. But Nathan, we're not wrong. Maya turned back. I've spent the last week watching patterns. Victoria's behavior isn't protective concern. It's calculated control. And people who operate that way don't stop until they're forced to. The truth of it sat heavy between them. Nathan nodded slowly. Then we force her to stop. Starting tomorrow. But tomorrow would bring its own complications, its own crises. Because Victoria Cole wasn't the type of woman who accepted defeat gracefully, and a cornered predator was always the most dangerous kind. Victoria's counterattack came 3 days later, precise and devastating as a surgical strike. Nathan was in his office when his lawyer Robert Chen called with news that made his blood crystallize. "We need to meet. Now. Your office, not mine. And don't discuss this over any line that might be recorded." Chen arrived within the hour carrying a briefcase and an expression that Nathan had learned meant catastrophic legal problems. The lawyer was 50, Harvard Law, with the kind of meticulous brilliance that made opposing counsel nervous. He set documents on Nathan's desk with the care of someone handling explosives. "Your sister filed a petition for emergency guardianship this morning. She's claiming you're mentally unstable, neglectful, and incapable of providing adequate care for Lily." Chen's voice remained professional, but anger simmered beneath. "She's got affidavits from 8 former nannies, 3 behavioral specialists, and 2 school administrators, plus medical records showing Lily's declining mental health under your care." Nathan's hands gripped the desk edge hard enough to hurt. "That's insane. We just had a breakthrough. Lily's doing better than she has in 2 years." "That's not what the evidence says. According to Victoria's filing, you hired an unqualified 23-year-old waitress with no credentials to work with a severely traumatized child. She's painting Maya as either a charlatan or your mistress, possibly both." Chen pulled out another document. "She's also claiming financial irregularities in how you're compensating Maya. $400,000 for someone with no relevant experience raises questions about your judgment." The accusation hit like a physical blow. Nathan stood, needing to move, needing to think. "What about the trust fund audit? Did you find anything?" "I did, and that's our nuclear option. But we have to be strategic about deploying it." Chen opened his briefcase again, extracting a forensic accounting report thick enough to double as a weapon. "Victoria's been diverting funds for 18 months. Shell companies, offshore accounts, creative bookkeeping. We're talking about $2.3 million. But here's the problem. If we expose this now, she'll claim you manipulated the records to discredit her. The optics are terrible. Billionaire CEO versus concerned aunt trying to protect her niece. The court might see your counter-evidence as retaliation." Nathan felt trapped, outmaneuvered by someone who'd spent 2 years positioning pieces on a chessboard he hadn't known existed. "So what do? We prove Lily's thriving under current arrangements. We document improvement. We get expert testimony about Maya's effectiveness, and we pray the judge sees through Victoria's performance." Chen's expression turned grim. "But Nathan, I have to be honest. Emergency guardianship petitions are hard to fight. If the court believes Lily's in immediate danger, they can grant temporary custody to Victoria while the case proceeds. That could take months to resolve." The thought of Lily being taken, placed in Victoria's control, made Nathan's chest constrict. "How long before the hearing?" 5 days. Friday at 2 p.m. Chen started packing his documents. "I'll need statements from you, Maya, and ideally Lily herself. Character witnesses, evidence of recent positive changes. And we need to be ready for Victoria to bring out every piece of dirty laundry she can find." After Chen left, Nathan sat alone in his office as Manhattan darkened outside his windows. He'd built an empire by being smarter, faster, more ruthless than his competitors. But Victoria had learned from the same family, played the same games. And she'd been planning this move while he'd been too consumed with grief and failure to see it coming. His phone buzzed, Maya texting from the penthouse. "We need to talk. Something happened with Lily." Nathan's heart stuttered. He grabbed his jacket and left, ignoring Emily's questions about his afternoon meetings. The drive uptown took 20 minutes that felt like hours, every worst-case scenario cycling through his mind. Victoria had filed for guardianship. What if she'd already made contact with Lily? What if she'd poisoned their fragile progress? He found Maya and Lily in the music room, which had become their default gathering place over the past few days. Lily sat at the piano, but her posture radiated tension rather than the tentative peace she'd been showing. Maya stood nearby, arms crossed, expression carefully neutral. "What happened?" Nathan's voice came out harder than intended, CEO mode activating under stress. Maya met his eyes and he saw a warning there. Lily received an email from her Aunt Victoria. Lily turned on the piano bench, holding her tablet. Her face was pale, young, scared in a way that made Nathan's protective instincts roar to life. She says you're trying to keep me away from family, that Maya is manipulating you, that I need to tell the truth about what's really happening here. Nathan crossed to his daughter, kneeling so they were eye level. Let me see. The email was a masterpiece of manipulation, each word carefully chosen to plant doubt while maintaining plausible deniability. Victoria expressed concern about Nathan's recent erratic behavior, mentioned Maya's questionable qualifications, suggested that Lily might feel pressured to pretend things were improving when they weren't. The final paragraph offered a lifeline. If you ever feel unsafe or need help, you can always come to me. I'm filing papers to make sure you have options, sweetheart. Because I love you and I won't stand by while you're put at risk. Nathan's jaw clenched so hard his teeth ached. She's lying, Lily, about all of it. I know. Lily's voice was small but certain. I know because she did the same thing before. After Mom died, she'd send me messages like this, telling me things were worse than I thought, that Dad was falling apart, that maybe I should come stay with her for a while. I always said no, but she never stopped asking. The revelation added another layer to Victoria's manipulation. She'd been working on Lily for 2 years, systematically undermining Nathan while positioning herself as the only stable option. Why didn't you tell me? Because I thought she was right. I thought I was the problem, and you did blame me, and everything she said made sense. Lily's hands twisted in her lap. But now I know she was lying then too, and I don't want to go with her, ever. Maya spoke for the first time since Nathan arrived, her tone measured but steel hard. Victoria filed for emergency guardianship. Robert Chen called me an hour ago to give me a heads up. The hearing is Friday. Nathan's world tilted slightly. Chen had called Maya directly, which meant the lawyer understood that she was central to their defense. She's claiming I'm unfit, that you're dangerous, that Lily's in immediate risk. Classic predator behavior. Isolate the victim, discredit support systems, position yourself as the only safe option. Maya looked at Lily. But here's what Victoria doesn't understand. She's not fighting a traumatized 8-year-old anymore. She's fighting a 12-year-old who's smart enough to see through her tactics and brave enough to speak up. Lily straightened slightly at that, some of her fear transforming into something fiercer. What do I need to do? Nathan felt pride surge through his chest, mixing with terror at what he was about to ask his daughter to do. You might need to testify. Tell a judge what you told us about Victoria's lies, about the email, about how things have actually been improving. But Lily, that means being questioned by lawyers. It means Victoria will be in the room, probably with her own attorney trying to make you doubt yourself. It won't be easy. Nothing about the last 2 years has been easy. Lily's voice carried an edge of Rachel's steel, that quality his wife had possessed of turning fragility into strength through sheer force of will. If I have to tell the truth to keep her away from us, I'll do it. Maya crouched beside Nathan, forming a triangle with Lily at its point. Before you decide anything, you need to understand what testimony means. Victoria's lawyer will try to twist your words, make you seem confused or coached. They'll ask about every fight you had with your dad, every plate you broke, every nanny you drove away. They'll make it sound like you're only saying nice things now because Maya and Nathan trained you to. But that's not true. Lily looked between them, seeking confirmation. Things are better now. You both actually listen to me. Dad comes home for dinner. We talk about Mom without everyone crying. That's real, isn't it? Nathan's throat went tight. Yes, sweetheart. It's real. And that's exactly what we need the judge to understand. They spent the next 2 hours preparing, not rehearsing testimony, which Chen had warned against, but discussing what Lily might be asked and how to stay grounded in truth rather than getting defensive. Maya demonstrated techniques from her psychology training, ways to manage anxiety and maintain clarity under pressure. Nathan watched his daughter transform from scared child to determined advocate for her own future, and he felt the weight of what they were asking her to carry. Around 9 p.m., Lily's exhaustion became visible. Maya sent her to bed over mild protests, then turned to Nathan with an expression that made his stomach sink. There's something else. Victoria knows about my father. Your father, Miguel? Nathan's mind raced through implications. What about him? She had someone investigate me, thoroughly. She knows he has stage 3 lung cancer, knows about the medical debt, knows I was struggling to keep us both afloat before you hired me. Maya's voice remained steady, but Nathan saw fury beneath the calm. Her lawyer is going to argue that I took this job purely for money, that I'm exploiting your desperation and Lily's trauma for financial gain. They'll paint me as a con artist who saw an opportunity and seized it. Nathan stood, pacing to the window overlooking Central Park. The city sprawled below, millions of lives intersecting in patterns too complex to map. Somewhere out there, Victoria was preparing her assault, sharpening every weapon she'd spent 2 years forging. Then we tell the truth. You did need the money. You were drowning in debt and barely surviving. But that doesn't make you a con artist. It makes you human. And the fact that you've helped Lily more in 3 weeks than professionals did in 2 years speaks to character, not credentials. The court might not see it that way. To them, I'm just some kid barely out of college, playing therapist with a billionaire's traumatized daughter for a paycheck that most people don't see in a decade. Maya's frustration finally cracked through her composure. And the worst part is, Victoria's not entirely wrong. I did want the money, desperately. When you made that offer, my first thought wasn't about Lily. It was about my father's medical bills, my student loans, the eviction notice on my apartment door. But your second thought? Nathan kept his voice gentle, sensing they were approaching something important. Maya's shoulders sagged slightly. My second thought was about this little girl who'd built walls so high nobody could reach her, and wondering if maybe I knew how to climb them because I'd built the same walls myself. My third thought was about my father, who used to tell me that the right thing and the easy thing are rarely the same. And by the fourth thought, I knew I was going to say yes regardless of the money, because walking away would haunt me. The confession hung between them, honest and imperfect, and exactly what Nathan needed to hear. Then that's what you tell the judge. Not a fairy tale about pure altruism, but the truth. You needed the job, but you also needed to help. Both things can be true simultaneously. Victoria's lawyer will eviscerate me. Maya met his eyes. And by extension, they'll eviscerate you for hiring me. Your judgment, your fitness as a parent, everything will be questioned. Let them question. Nathan felt certainty settle over him like armor. Because at the end of the day, Lily is getting better. She's sleeping through the night without nightmares. She's playing piano again. She's talking about her mother without shutting down. Those are facts, not opinions. And facts are what courts respect. Maya nodded slowly, but doubt lingered in her expression. I hope you're right, because if we lose Friday, if Victoria gets even temporary custody, we won't lose. Nathan spoke with more confidence than he felt, but sometimes leadership meant projecting certainty in the face of chaos. Victoria's been playing a long game, but she made one critical mistake. She underestimated how strong Lily actually is. The next 3 days passed in a blur of preparation. Chen assembled their defense like a general planning a siege. Character witnesses from Nathan's business colleagues, expert testimony from a child psychologist who'd reviewed Lily's recent progress, documentation of improved grades and behavioral reports from Dalton. Maya spent hours being prepped on cross-examination tactics, learning how to answer hostile questions without becoming defensive. Lily practiced too, though Chen advised keeping her testimony brief. The goal was simple: let the judge see a child who was healing, not a puppet reciting rehearsed lines. Thursday night, the eve of battle, Nathan couldn't sleep. He wandered the penthouse at 3 a.m., eventually finding himself in the music room where Rachel's presence still lingered like perfume. He sat at the piano, his fingers resting on keys he didn't know how to play, and felt the weight of everything he could lose. Maya found him there 20 minutes later, wearing sweatpants and one of his old Vans Tech hoodies she must have borrowed from somewhere. Couldn't sleep either? Thinking about what happens if we lose, if Victoria gets custody, even temporarily. Nathan's voice was rough with exhaustion and fear. She'll undo everything. She'll convince Lily that this progress was fake, that I'm the problem, that the only safe place is with her. And Lily will believe it because children believe the adults who claim to protect them. Maya sat beside him on the bench, close enough that their shoulders touched. Then we don't lose. We go in there tomorrow and we fight like our lives depend on it, because Lily's life does depend on it. Her whole future, her ability to heal, her relationship with you, all of it hangs on what happens in that courtroom. No pressure. Nathan attempted humor, but it fell flat. Actually, yes, pressure. Because pressure creates diamonds, and tomorrow we need to be flawless. Maya's hand found his on the piano keys, her fingers surprisingly warm. You've built an empire, Nathan. You've negotiated billion-dollar deals and outmaneuvered competitors who wanted to destroy you. This is the same thing. It's just that the stakes are infinitely higher and the currency is trust instead of money. Nathan turned to look at her, really look at her, and saw the woman who'd somehow become essential to his family's survival in less than a month. If this goes wrong, if Victoria wins, I need you to know, you changed our lives. You gave me my daughter back. That matters, regardless of what happens tomorrow. We're not losing tomorrow. Maya's certainty felt like an anchor in stormy water. Because Victoria made a fatal error. She thought she was fighting you, the billionaire, the CEO, the man who could be manipulated through guilt and isolation. But she's actually fighting all three of us. And we're stronger together than she accounted for. The words settled into Nathan's chest like stones marking a foundation. She was right. Victoria had planned for him to be alone, to be overwhelmed, to cave under pressure. Instead, he had Maya's strategic thinking and Lily's courage. Together, they formed something Victoria's calculations couldn't account for. Friday morning arrived with the weight of an execution. Nathan dressed in his most conservative suit, navy Tom Ford, white shirt, understated tie. The goal was to look stable, responsible, paternal. Maya wore a simple dress Chen had helped her select, professional without trying too hard. Lily chose her Dalton uniform, a visual reminder that she was still a child navigating adult problems. The courthouse was downtown, gray stone and marble columns, the kind of architecture designed to intimidate. Victoria was already there with her lawyer, a shark named Patricia Morrison who specialized in family law and had a reputation for viciousness wrapped in maternal concern. Morrison was 60, expensively dressed, with the kind of face that suggested she genuinely believed she was saving children from unfit parents. Victoria looked perfect, concerned aunt in Chanel, worry etched convincingly across her features. When she saw them, her expression cycled through surprise, calculation, then settled on wounded betrayal. Nathan, please, we can resolve this privately. You don't have to put Lily through a court hearing. Nathan kept walking, one hand on Lily's shoulder. You filed the petition, Victoria. You made this public. We're just responding. They entered the courtroom, a space designed to strip away pretense and expose truth. Judge Catherine Brennan presided, a woman in her late 50s with silver hair and eyes that had seen too many broken families to indulge in sentiment. She reviewed the case files with the efficiency of someone who had 30 other hearings that day. This is an emergency petition for temporary guardianship. Miss Cole, your attorney may present opening arguments. Morrison stood, and Nathan watched a masterclass in manipulation unfold. She painted Victoria as the devoted aunt who'd watched helplessly while Nathan spiraled into workaholic neglect. The 9 failed nannies became evidence of instability. Lily's behavioral problems became cries for help that Nathan ignored. Maya was characterized as either incompetent or predatory, possibly both. A young woman with no credentials, massive debt, and suspicious financial incentives. Morrison presented the affidavits from former nannies, each one describing a household in chaos. She showed Lily's declining grades from the year following Rachel's death. She produced emails from school administrators expressing concern about the girl's antisocial behavior. The evidence accumulated like stones, building a wall that suggested Nathan Cole was drowning and dragging his daughter down with him. Then Morrison played her trump card. Your Honor, I'd like to submit recent communications showing continued manipulation of the minor child. She projected Victoria's email to Lily on the courtroom screen, but edited to remove context. What remained looked like a concerned aunt reaching out to an isolated child, offering help that was rejected under suspicious circumstances. Note the child's response, clearly coached to refuse contact with family members. This demonstrates the level of control being exerted over Miss Cole by her father and his employee. Chen stood for their defense, and Nathan watched him dismantle Morrison's narrative with surgical precision. He presented the financial records showing Victoria's embezzlement, documentation so thorough that even Morrison couldn't dismiss it. He called the child psychologist who'd evaluated Lily's recent progress, who testified that the girl showed marked improvement in emotional regulation, social engagement, and trauma processing. The question before this court isn't whether Nathan Cole is a perfect parent. No parent is. The question is whether his daughter is thriving under current arrangements. And the evidence overwhelmingly shows she is. Chen pulled up Lily's recent grades. Straight A's after a year of C's and D's. This is a child who's healing, Your Honor. Disrupting that healing by removing her from her father's care would be catastrophic. Judge Brennan listened with the impassive attention of someone trained to detect lies. I'd like to hear from the minor child herself. Miss Cole, approach the witness stand. Lily walked forward with her spine straight, looking younger than 10 in her school uniform, but carrying herself with unexpected dignity. The court officer swore her in, and Nathan felt his heart trying to escape his chest. This was the moment everything hinged on, whether his daughter could articulate her own needs clearly enough to overcome 2 years of Victoria's manipulation. Morrison went first, her voice warm with false concern. Lily, sweetheart, I know this is scary, but I need you to tell the judge the truth. Has your father or Miss Torres told you what to say today? They told me to tell the truth. Lily's voice was steady, which is what I'm doing. Of course. Now, you've had a lot of caretakers over the past 2 years. 9 nannies, I believe. Why do you think none of them worked out? Nathan saw the trap. Make Lily blame herself or blame him, either answer supporting Morrison's narrative. But Lily had prepared for this. Because they were scared of me. I was mean to them because I was angry about my mom dying, and I wanted everyone else to hurt too. That wasn't their fault or my dad's fault. It was mine. The honesty caught Morrison off balance for a microsecond. She recovered quickly. You must have been very angry. Are you still angry? Sometimes, but I'm also learning to deal with it better. Maya taught me that being angry is okay, but how you handle anger is what matters. Throwing plates is loud but stupid. Talking about feelings is harder but smarter. Morrison shifted tactics. Maya, you mean Miss Torres, the woman your father hired, despite her having no qualifications to work with traumatized children? She has a psychology degree, and she actually listens to me instead of trying to fix me. That's more than the therapist did. Lily's voice gained an edge, and she's the only person besides my dad who figured out that Aunt Victoria was lying to me. The courtroom went very still. Judge Brennan leaned forward slightly. Lying to you how? Lily looked directly at Victoria, and Nathan saw his daughter transform into someone fierce and unbreakable. At my mom's funeral, Aunt Victoria told me that my dad would never forgive me for causing Mom's death. She said I broke his heart. She said that's why he locked Mom's music room and wouldn't talk about her, because he blamed me. She's been sending me messages for 2 years telling me things are worse than I think, that I should come live with her. But it was all lies. My dad doesn't blame me. He was just sad and didn't know how to show it. And Aunt Victoria was trying to make me think I couldn't trust him so she could... Lily paused, something clicking into place in real time. So she could control Mom's trust fund. That's why she wants custody. Not because she cares about me, because she wants the money. Morrison objected loudly, calling the testimony speculation and hearsay, but the damage was done. Judge Brennan's expression had shifted from neutral assessment to sharp interest. She turned to Victoria, who'd gone pale. Miss Cole, is there truth to these allegations? Victoria stood, radiating wounded dignity. Your Honor, my niece is a troubled child who's been fed lies by people trying to isolate her from family. I love Lily. Everything I've done has been to protect her from a father too consumed with grief and work to provide adequate care. Then you won't object to a full forensic audit of Rachel Cole's trust fund, the one you've been managing for the past 2 years? Chen's voice cut through Victoria's performance. Because our preliminary investigation found $2.3 million in questionable transactions. Shell companies, offshore transfers, creative accounting that coincidentally benefits you personally. Morrison was on her feet, objecting to ambush tactics and unsubstantiated allegations. But Judge Brennan held up a hand. I'm going to order that audit. And Miss Cole, I'm putting a temporary freeze on your access to the trust pending investigation. She looked at the assembled lawyers, at Victoria's frozen expression, at Lily's relieved face. As for the guardianship petition, I'm denying it. This child is clearly articulate, intelligent, and capable of expressing her own needs. And what she's expressed is a desire to remain with her father. Unless substantive evidence of abuse or neglect emerges, real evidence, not just documentation of a difficult grief process, I see no reason to disrupt her current placement. The gavel came down, and Nathan felt 2 years of tension drain from his body like water. Lily was safe. Victoria had lost. The nightmare was over. Except Victoria wasn't done. As they exited the courtroom, she cornered them in the marble hallway, her mask finally slipping. You think you've won? You've just guaranteed that Lily grows up damaged and alone because you're too broken to be what she needs. Nathan stepped between his sister and his daughter, voice low and dangerous. You're right about one thing, I am broken. Losing Rachel broke something in me that might never fully heal. But I'm still Lily's father, and I'm still standing between her and anyone who tries to hurt her, including you. This isn't over. Victoria's voice shook with rage. I'll appeal. You'll go to prison if that audit finds what we both know it will. Chen's voice was clinical, factual. Embezzlement, fraud, possibly identity theft depending on how you structured those shell companies. You're looking at federal charges, Victoria. Your best move now is to hire a criminal defense attorney and hope for a plea deal. Victoria stared at them, hatred naked on her face before turning and walking away. Her heels clicked against marble like gunshots, each step taking her further from the family she'd tried to control. In the courthouse lobby, Lily wrapped her arms around Nathan's waist, holding on like she might drift away without anchor. He held her back, one hand on Maya's shoulder, and felt the foundation of their rebuilt family settle into place. Not perfect, not healed completely, but real and strong and theirs. Can we go home? Lily's voice was muffled against his suit jacket. Yes, sweetheart, we can go home. And for the first time in 2 years, home felt like the right word for where they were heading.